State governors in Nigeria get a bad rap, accused of all kinds of crimes, from mismanagement of state resources to poor development planning. At least 6 Nigerian state governors have been convicted of stealing public funds. So it came as a pleasant surprise when we found out that governors have an induction program. We'll show you more in our focus on the FCT. My guest talks us through the need for the induction program for governors-elect and the impact these trainings have had over the years. And yes, we have an update of major stories from Nigeria's presidency. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. Let's begin with a rundown of major stories from Nigeria's seat of power.
President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to Abuja after attending the coronation of King Charles III in the United Kingdom. The president's aircraft, which landed at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, had departed the nation's capital on the 3rd of May for the ceremony, which took place on the 6th of May 2023. President Buhari was scheduled to return to the country after the coronation ceremony in London, but his presidential spokesman, Mr. Femi Adesina, announced an extension of his stay in the UK by a week on the advice of his dentist. Meanwhile, hours after his return, the presidency assured Nigerians that the administration will continue to prioritize the issue of inflation. According to a statement issued by the presidential spokesman, Mr. Garba Shehu, the nation's inflation rate of 22% is undoubtedly high and worrisome. He maintained that it would be incorrect to suggest that the Buhari administration is not making efforts to address the volatile global cost of living crisis. President Muhammadu Buhari has admonished members of the National Youth Service Corps not to be used by centrifugal forces to undermine the country religiously, economically, or politically. The president gave the advice when he hosted the Presidential NYSC Honors Award ceremony at the State House in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the scheme. President Buhari further directed the head of the Civil Service of the Federation to ensure immediate employment of 65 former corps members into the Federal Civil Service.
I hereby direct the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, the Federal Civil Service Commission, and the Honorable Minister of Education to ensure A. the employment of the Presidential Honors Award recipients, as well as the physically challenged, a cash award of 250,000 naira to each of the best award winners and 200,000 naira each to the other award winners.
And President Muhammadu Buhari has inaugurated the 21 billion naira presidential wing of the State House Medical Center. The First Lady, Aisha Buhari, who accompanied him, declared that the facility would obliterate the need for the president and his family members to go abroad for medical treatment. At the commissioning ceremony, which took place within the premises of the presidential villa, the wife of the president told State House correspondent as she got the idea of the wing 6 years ago after the extensive stay of her husband abroad for medical treatment. The federal government says it is not in support of the National Assembly bill proposing to deny Nigerian trained medical or dental practitioners from being granted full licenses until they have worked for a minimum of 5 years in the country. Briefing State House correspondent after the Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, the Minister of Labour, Mr. Chris Ngige, asserted that the bill in the National Assembly cannot stop anyone from getting a full license.
They should think of other ways. If they are trying to check brain drain, there is other ways. If a doctor has read on scholarship, you bond him. 50,000 naira a session for a medical student is nothing. When their counterparts overseas pay 70,000 pounds for a session. So I don't support that bill. So you can bond them.
The Federal Ministry of Aviation has been renamed the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace of Nigeria. The Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, who made the announcement, explained that the alteration became expedient because it is on the exclusive list. The Federal Executive Council also announced an approval for the resumption of on-street parking, also known as Park As You Pay, in the nation's capital.
Federal Ministry of Aviation name has been changed because it is on exclusive list, just like Foreign Affairs Ministry is on exclusive list. There is no Foreign Affairs Ministry of Katsina. So the ministry will be called Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace. Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace of Nigeria. And it's important that we become proactive and set our policies, regulations, and rules to be in tandem with what is obviously coming.
President Muhammadu Buhari has written to the House of Representatives requesting approval to borrow $800 million from the World Bank for the Social Safety Net program. In a letter read by the Speaker of the House of Representatives during Wednesday's plenary, the President says the program is intended to expand coverage of shock-responsive safety net support among the poor and vulnerable Nigerians.
You may wish to note that the federal government of Nigeria, under the conditional cash transfer window of the program, will transfer the sum of 5,000 naira per month to 10.2 million poor and low-income households for a period of 6 months, with a multiplier effect of about 60 million individuals. In order to guarantee the credibility of the process, digital transfers will be made directly to beneficiaries and mobile wallets.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, says he is throwing his weight behind Honorable Tajuddin Abbas for the Speaker of the 10th House of Representatives to build on legislative gains of the 9th National Assembly. Right Honorable Gbajabiamila, who was speaking to members-elect from a faction known as the Joint Task Force Team in Abuja, says Honorable Abbas possesses the capacity to lead the 10th House and is asking the members-elect to trust him. The Speaker further explained that the speakership position was zoned to the Northwest as the highest voting bloc, which contributed the most to the emergence of the APC at the top.
Welcome back. Newly elected governors went through an induction program a few days ago at the banquet hall of the State House in Abuja. They heard from facilitators of all walks of life on how they can better govern their states, what areas they should focus on, what challenges exist at subnational levels, what sort of teams they should work with, how they can leverage on state resources and work with development partners. Among their facilitators were the President of the World Trade Organization, Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Country Director of the World Bank, Mr. Shubham Chaudhry, and the Deputy Secretary of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, among others. Please watch this. The 2023 induction for re-elected and newly elected governors attracts dignitaries from different walks of life who converge on the banquet hall of the Presidential Villa in Abuja. It's an occasion that brings both the outgoing, re-elected and newly elected governors together to speak on the tasks that are ahead of these state executives.
I'm happy to note that democracy is alive and well, vibrant and thriving in Nigeria. With elections now over, it is time for us, all of us, to deliver the promises we made during the campaign. Any public officer who fails to either meet up with the expectations of the people or deliver on his campaign promises will be voted out in the next election.
Unemployment, poverty, and insecurity are difficult tasks incoming administration are expected to face in their respective states. Building strong, viable institutions and the polity will help in tackling unemployment, reducing poverty, and ensuring the provision of security of lives and property. This is a worthy legacy to be bequeathed to our children and generations to come.
Some of the guest speakers at the event also underscored the importance of nation building through strong partnerships and economic diversification.
We need to start preparing now for a time when our oil and gas may no longer serve us as the main sources of revenue. States with a heavy dependence on FAC allocations will be particularly hit. It is important that you, governors, start now to diversify your revenue sources. Honorable governors, let us be candid. Trust in Nigeria has always been fragile, but following the election, a lot of trust has been broken. Excellencies, you have a lot of healing to do.
Second, you will need trusted partnerships. Partnerships with central government, with the private sector, with civil society, academia, and with international financial institutions, and indeed with the United Nations, of which you are a big part.
On day 2 of the induction, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, some former governors and representatives of the diplomatic community are in attendance. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who delivers the keynote address. He focuses on the need for governors to unleash their potential in young people by making targeted investments that are capable of creating entrepreneurs.
It is imperative to unleash the potentials that lie in our youth. It's no longer news that over 75% of our population is under the age of 35. We must move away from so-called youth empowerment programs that do not add any value. The youth do not need handouts. They need investments that will propel them to wealth creators.
Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State presents the lead paper with a focus on managing the process of governance. He underscores the importance of getting to business as soon as the governors are sworn in on May the 29th.
Time is something that we do not have. Time is something that we cannot waste. Time is something that we cannot be trivial about. You should not leave here believing that you are an 8-year governor. Please, you are a 4-year governor. And from day one, you start counting your days.
The panel discussion dwells extensively on issues around budgeting, team selection, and project prioritization. On the sideline of the event, the governor of Oyo State shares his thoughts on the issues of local government financial autonomy.
The kind of a reform we're talking about right now is still centered on consumption. You're thinking about what is coming from the federation account to the local government. How do you share it? That is the reform we're talking about. And some of us said, no, let's do a reform that can ensure that local governments, they are viable, they can generate their own resources, and they can then spend it, not just what is coming from the federal allocation, because that will, ultimately, it will dry up.
On day 3 of this induction program, the event winds down with this session with development partners. The objective is to intimate the governors-elect on the opportunities that exist with development partners, including grants, partnerships, and project sponsorships. One of the speakers on this day, the country director of the World Bank, is concerned about the rising debt profile of some states and warns that the situation could get worse depending on the decision of the government on the fuel subsidy regime.
As of 2022, I think about 32 of the 36 states were operating at a deficit already, a pretty large deficit in many cases, in most cases. Well, that situation is going to get worse this year, much worse if action is not taken on PMS subsidies. And as I mentioned on Monday night, that's a political choice, and that's a political choice where the states, the subnational, and all of you as governors have a particularly critical role to play.
Issues around revenue generation, budgeting, and good governance dominated discussions here since the start of this induction. And some of the new inductees believe strongly that this is a good start for them.
Most of the speakers from their past experience have talked a lot of important issues that certainly we will be confronted with. And I have no doubt in my mind most of us will take most of these things that we learned today and use it to enhance our governance.
The governor of Bauchi State also shares his thoughts on the rising debt profile of the federal and state governments.
We cannot continue to borrow endlessly. Our debt servicing requirement is about 95% of the revenue. And so the states are affected by this macroeconomic reality. We have taken so much upfront. The federation has to be looked at as a structure because states have to have a say in the management of the economy.
These governors will have the responsibility of managing the resources of their respective states after they're sworn in on May the 29th. The knowledge and experiences of former governors shared during this program could be the launchpad for their successes or failures. Meanwhile, citizens in their respective states will be keen to see if these newly elected governors deliver on their campaign promises. My guest on the program is the Executive Director, Nigerian Governors Forum, and Chairman, Organizing Committee, NGF Induction Program, Dr. Abdulateef Shittu. He tells me this is the third installment of this induction program, and we try to understand what areas are covered by this induction and the impact it has had on salient issues facing state governments in Nigeria. Dr. Shitu, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you.
It's been a very interesting few days for the Nigerian Governors Forum with all these trainings, but I wanted to take us through exactly what's going on here. What is this training about and why is it necessary?
Yes, thank you very much. The 2023 Governors Induction Program is the third series since we started this ritual.
The interesting thing is many Nigerians didn't know
this is happening.
That this happens.
Yes.
And you can't blame them because we're looking at the quality of governors that we've had over the years. If they've been going through training like this, why is it that we have so many situations with the governors in Nigeria and how they are performing in office? Would you say that these trainings have been effective in making them better governors, or are these trainings falling on deaf ears?
No, it's been effective, very effective.
In what ways?
Yeah, because if you, like I told you, I mean, most of them are coming from backgrounds that are either private sector orientation or somebody who has been, he's a private businessman who's never worked in government before. And then suddenly he's found himself having to deal with bureaucrats.
Let's look at some of the topics.
Yes.
So I'm looking at, this was day 2.
This was day 1.
No, I'm looking at the day 2.
Oh, day 2, okay.
So this was the day that the Vice President was supposed to be there, but he said the Secretary to the Government of the Federation.
Open.
So it was managing the process of governance.
Yes.
Right? And considering your management style, choosing an organizational model, setting reporting requirements, internal communications, budget development and education and execution, scheduling decisions, appointments, conflict management.
Yes.
This brings me to the question that I have been trying to find the answer to. With all of these trainings, would you say, because this is the third installment, this is the third time you're doing this. Has this worked on the governors so far?
It has worked because...
In what ways?
Yeah, if you look at even the governors in the past, they've gone through all of these sessions. And that's why most of them have become effective in the discharge of their responsibilities.
Anything that checks performance?
Oh yes, because they also had I'll come to that when we talk about the state peer review things and how we try to compare performances within states and all that. But gradually, there's also a session that I talked about managing certain priorities and performance expectations. So governors are saying, look, this is all of the promises I've made before, during the election time. So how do you now transit from electioneering, campaigning, into real governance? So, and how do you set your priorities and define your agenda? These are all of the issues that came up under that in that session. We also do what we call the good governance share fair. Governance share fair, where we bring people from the same zone together and they look critically and look at all of the various sectors and say, what is it that Ekiti is doing on health that Lagos can learn from? What is Lagos doing in IGR that Ondo can learn from? Agri cannot. They look at all the various sectors.
What about security?
And then security the same. How do you can see under that we have a special session this year on managing security at the subnational levels.
We did have all of the security situations in the southwest. Of course, we've been dealing with insecurity in northeastern Nigeria
as well,
and of course in the eastern part, the southeastern part of the country as well. What are some of the things that have come out of this training that can help with these cases of insecurity in these states?
Yeah, they have told them, and we brought all the stakeholders and the experts in these areas to come talk to them. And then we brought in key states where you have some challenges, Benue, Kaduna, Anambra, Soludo, and then Borno was also there. And I think we added Adamawa also, I can't recall, where the governors who can share their experiences and talking to the experts, looking at both the kinetic and then the non-kinetic approach, to solving all of these security challenges.
Budgeting is also a very critical issue when it comes to state management.
Realistic budget. How do you...
And local government autonomy.
Yes.
And funding for local government.
Funding, resource...
Did this come up at all?
It did. Well, yes. Funding for local government. If you check it, there's also looking, working with all tiers of government. And then local government is one of it. Everything has to be done in conformity with the Constitution. If you look at the Constitution today, what it says is that the local government, we have two federating units, which is the federal government and the state. The local government is an appendage of the state. And it's clear from the Constitution. And that's why they said you have this joint local government account and all that. All of this there has to be some constitutional amendments and reform for you to be able to, have the kinds of the autonomy that we're looking for. That
the local government requires.
Require.
It will require constitutional amendment.
But even without that, a number of the states have been implementing the autonomy, local government autonomy. A number of the states have done that.
These trainings, did the concept of corruption come up? Because we've seen situations where governors are like czars, mini czars in their localities and basically loot till there's nothing to loot. Or someone else comes into office and they start to tell you how, the person before me took his time to really clean up this place.
But again...
Did that come up at all in these trainings?
No, there are trainings about, fidelity and quite a number of other issues. But what I also want to do is to, talk a bit about the media perception. I think it's media as well. The media perception of governors in general.
This is something that Nigerians do. It's not a media perception.
At the end of the day, what happened? They were set free because most of these charges have no foundation. And they were just rumor, all kinds of stories. And coming from their political opponents and what have you. You have all kinds of stories like that. But when you go check...
We had 2 governors that went to jail, sir.
Yeah, I know, in the past.
They were just released. The Buhari administration pardoned them. They were released recently. It was also about corruption charges.
Yes, I know. I'm not saying that the governors are immune. Yeah.
This group that you're speaking to right now, this set of governors, what are your expectations? Do you think that this is the group that is going to be able to join hands with the federal government and lift people out of poverty? Because that is what we're looking at the most right now.
Yes, the issue of poverty is it's in the front burner of all of them. They're thinking, how do we do that? How do we create jobs? How do we, broaden the economic base of the states? They're all looking at that, and these are some of the issues that are contained in the coming to accountability and transparency. We've also done a lot in that regard. The desire, the urgency to want to be of service to your people. I can see it in all of them. After the program, there was this desire to just want to hit the ground running and to start addressing the issues. Like I told you, the issues are numerous, and governance is a journey. You can't achieve everything in 4 years. You just do your bit, and then you go. That's why you define your agenda and say, this is what I intend to do within this term.
Well, that's where we wrap it up today on Dateline Abuja. Dr. Shitu, thank you so much for making out the time to be with us, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you very much, madam, and thank you for having me.
Thanks to my guest and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. The elections are over, and in a matter of days, all elected governors will be sworn in as citizens watch closely on how they deliver on their campaign promises. The induction exercise is the first formal meeting of all the newly elected, re-elected, and outgoing governors from the 36 states of the Federation. It is expected that the knowledge shared at this induction will have a significant impact on governance in their respective states. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screens. Thank you so much for watching. I am Kayla Megwa. See you next time.